Okay, so this is the second part of today, and we're going to have Sebastian Boscan. Sebastian um, is a computer
Hello,
science.
hello.
Yeah, welcome. So he's a computer science student and also, helping us out with the class as a teaching assistant. So he actually has a certification in GitHub. So hopefully he would lay things out for us in a way we can understand. But most importantly, he would be able to, you know, run all of this in video. So if you have any problems, or like if you miss anything as you blink your eye, you can always go back to the video, and then you can also come to Discord if there's anything. And if it's so hard we can't fix it on Discord, we can actually do a one-on-one either with you or with your group on Zoom to help resolve whatever issues. The only thing is just bear in mind, I you know, everybody here is learning, so extending some patience and grace will be, very helpful. Thank you. All right, Sebastian, take over.
All right, great. Let me see if I can screen share so I can show the presentations.
Yes, please.
And this is going to be a two-part thing. There's going to be a presentation. Then we're going to try and create our own GitHub repository and upload it to the cloud so we can keep track of everything. So let's try to share this. Can you guys see?
Yes.
All
Yes.
right, perfect. Okay, okay. So thank you, Dr. Noble. I am Sebastian. I am a computer science student at the University of South Carolina. I work with Dr. Noble in programming stuff and robots and all that. And I am also GitHub certified. So, if you have any questions at any time, just raise your hand, let me know. If you're confused, let me know. Really, I've been on your position and I know it can be hard to understand these topics. So, have you ever had this happen to you ever? You're working on a project and you think you have it and you name it like project final presentation, yet then you make a second like version of it because you notice there's like a typo or something. So you have to rename it with like project final 2. Can anybody raise their hand and tell me if this has happened to you?
Yes.
Okay, well, there is a solution to this, and that solution is Git and GitHub, but Git for now. So in this presentation, I'm going to cover what Git is, what GitHub is, how to use Git, so the various commands that Git brings. We're also going to learn branches, which I'm going to talk about it later, okay? Don't worry if you don't understand it. Then I'm also going to talk about merging and pull requests, some summary and key takeaways, and then Q&A, so you guys can ask me any questions, which I know there will be most likely some questions, which I'm willing to completely answer. And then we're going to go on and create our own GitHub repository. So first, Git. We're going to talk about Git. So what is Git? Git is basically a version control system. And I know that sounds a bit complicated, so let's break it down. So a version control system is some sort of program that helps you track your progress in a project. So instead of having to create two different files for two different versions of your presentation, you just have a single file that somehow stores history of the project itself. So it was created by the same creator of Linux, you guys probably have heard of Linux, the operating system, which is kind of like Windows but different. And basically, Git tracks changes to files over time, which I'm going to talk about later, and we're going to do a demo on it later. And basically, Git is based on every user having a full copy of the project's history, which I'm also going to talk about later. However, Git is really important to learn because it's an industry standard. So if you ever want to do anything programmer related, anything software engineering related, if you want to be like a programmer at Facebook or Google, you're going to need to know how to use Git. So why we use Git? As I mentioned before, it keeps a history of every change made in a file. So if you have a file that's prints hello world, right? And then you make a quick change to also print something else, like goodbye, let's say, then you can revert back. You can go back on time and pull the old version of the code. Then it also allows multiple people to work on the same project. If you think about it, how would you really manage a group of 20 people, 20 programmers trying to work on an app? Like how can you share that code around without overriding each other? Well, you use Git for that. And then you can see who changed what and why, which is really important when it comes to changes that you make or other people make. If somebody makes some like a really incredible, terrible change, then you can be like, oh, this person made that change. And we can go back in time and revert to the version that didn't have that bug. And then it also allows for experimentation via branches, which I'm going to talk about later. So before I go into GitHub, do you guys have any questions at all? All right, great, great. Okay, let's talk about GitHub because I just talked about Git, so GitHub now. What is GitHub? GitHub is an application, or well, also a website owned by Microsoft, and it is not Git itself. Remember, Git is the program we use to keep track of our changes. GitHub is the program we use to store those changes in. So it's essentially the same thing as Google Drive, but for programmers, for code. And GitHub is also really important because if you ever go into something technological, it's essentially your portfolio, you know? If you have any projects, you're going to have them stored in GitHub so people can access them and see how good your coding is or what you've done in your programming career. And it, I mean, GitHub is used by many companies like Meta, Google, Snapchat, Amazon, like so many companies use it. And we use it because it's easy to collaborate with others globally. Like you can just upload your code, anybody can access it, pull it, and then make their changes and then push those changes to the cloud. It also provides a backup of your code so you don't have a flash drive that you can potentially lose and lose all your code. And it can be accessed from anywhere that has Wi-Fi. And there's a like huge community of developers that use GitHub. And there's many projects that are stored in GitHub. Even things like if any of you know DeepSeek, which is an AI, um, all that code is open source and is stored on GitHub. So the essentially speaking, it's just a social media for developers. So now we're going to talk about how we use GitHub, well, Git, how we use Git and how we can contribute to Git, how we can start to store our changes and the different versions of our code. So the very basics that we need to learn is what a repository is. A repository, think of it as a folder. You guys know folders, right? Like everybody here is knowledgeable with Windows. You can create a folder and you can store things in it. A repository is the same thing as a folder. However, it's tracked by Git. So it's just a folder that has Git on it. And a repository, it can be local, so it can be on your local computer or on like a flash drive, pen drive, hard drive, or it can be remote where it's stored somewhere in the cloud, such as GitHub. A repository in the cloud can be either public or private, so you can say who has access to the repository itself. If it's private, of course. If it's public, then everybody has access to it. Such as some AI models from even OpenAI, the creators of ChatGPT, they have some AIs that are publicly accessible to anybody. And you can go in there and check the code. And anyway, repositories, they contain a snapshot of changes made to its files. This is the key to what Git is. Every time you make a commit of a repository, you're essentially taking a picture of the state of the folder at the time. So, I mean, I'm going to talk about this later on the demo, but if you have a repository, a folder, and then that folder has a program called hello world.py, and then you take a picture of it, a snapshot, then that snapshot is going to say that this folder has hello.py inside of it. However, if you add something else, then that's going to be outside of the picture you just took. Anyway, I'm going to talk about this later. So if you're confused, don't worry. I'll talk about this later. And now, how we contribute, this is a multi-step process, right? So first, we're going to pull the changes from the remote repository. So we pull the changes from the folder, then we edit the files inside the folder however we want. Then we mark the files to be saved by doing git add. Then we commit them by saving the files we just marked to be saved. And then we're going to push those changes to the cloud. And again, don't worry, I'll explain all of this. All of this will make sense once we do the demo, okay? However, I still have to go through the like theory real quick so we can all have some foundation to build upon. So far, do you guys have any questions? Any questions? All right, great. We are really close to doing the demo then. So now we're going to talk about branches. A branch. Oh, one question. Okay, one question. Toyin. Toyin, I see you have your hand raised. I don't think you're unmuted. So could you unmute yourself and ask the question you have?
Good afternoon.
Hello, I can hear you now.
Uh, Good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I'll go ahead, sure. I mean, you guys can hear me, right?
Tony, just
Yes,
yeah, go ahead, ask your question.
we can hear you.
Okay.
Do you still have a question, Tony?
Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Sorry, it's like my speaker is not audible enough.
Yeah, that's fine.
Please, I just want to quickly ask a question. Thanks for the presentation. I tried to make use of to install the Git, and as from the presentations so far now, the foundation lead, I tend to confuse. Or can I get more explanation on how to differentiate between Git? Can you hear me, please?
Yeah.
I want to differentiate between Git and maybe OneDrive. Maybe OneDrive. Hello?
Okay. Yeah, sure. Basically, there's some differences between the two. Dagu, I think you're unmuted. Noble, can you
Hello.
please?
Can you hear me, please?
Yeah, I can hear you. Don't worry, let me look for someone. There's someone
Can you understand me?
Okay, I'm sorry. There was somebody talking. Oh, well, they're still talking.
Yes, please,
Dr.
Mr.
Noble,
W.
can you please mute them?
Oh, yeah, I'm trying to.
W, please unmute yourself.
Okay, go ahead. It's been muted.
All right, thank you. So, Toyin, to answer your questions, right? So, Git itself, like Git without the hub in it, Git is pretty much a system to track your files. GitHub is the system that's essentially like OneDrive or like Google Drive, but for code. So the way it differs from OneDrive is that OneDrive, you usually upload things such as pictures or documents or maybe even sometimes text files. However, in GitHub, you only upload, well, usually you only upload things such as Python files or Python notebook files or maybe C++ or things like that, you know? So it's different that way. You can still upload things such as PDFs or images. However, GitHub it has more support for changing programming related files.
Sorry,
Does that
can
answer
I
your
add one?
question? Oh yeah, go ahead.
What I want to ask also was this overleaf. I don't know if you are aware, if you know overleaf. It's a way that two or more people can work on a particular write, although that's for word texting, that's Word document or what have you.
Right.
Does it also have, can you help me differentiate that also?
Well, GitHub and Git, they don't have a way to like code at the same time to different people. You can,
Okay.
however, contribute still. You can, yeah, I mean, there are a lot of ways to contribute while using Git and GitHub. I'm going to talk about them later. But there is no way, such as in Google Documents, for example, where you can make an edit and the other person see it immediately happen on their screen. That doesn't happen on Git or GitHub, generally speaking. However, there are ways to get to that.
Yeah, and the other thing he was mentioning is the issue of overleaf. Overleaf is essentially a tool where 2 or 3 or even a hundred.
Please, your voice is low, sir. I don't know.
Okay, just a minute. Just a minute. Just hold on. Let me use my headphone.
Okay, thank you.
So for what you might call it now, overleaf, right, is essentially almost like Google, right, where you have a Word document and everybody is working on it at the same time. What makes Git and GitHub different is that it's mostly a version control system. It does all the other things that all the other tools you've mentioned do. You can use it for storage. You can store all kinds of things. You can store textbooks. But the primary role, right, is for storing code and then for versioning. In other words, I can have different versions of this and I can go back to them. one way to think about it is like blockchain, right? In blockchain, whatever the data there is like immutable. You can't delete something and it just goes away. It's always going to be there. So it's a version control system, and you can revert to different versions, and you can branch out without creating a duplicate copy of what's going on. Everybody will be working on the same copy, but you can branch out, work on your own copy, and then integrate it back into the mainstream. Sebastian.
Hello, yeah. Thank you for parentheses. I didn't know what overleaf was, so yeah, I appreciate it a lot, Dr. Noble. Thank you. Um, Also, thank you, Toyin, for the question. Christian, I see you have your hand raised. Can you ask the question?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay, so mine is like a follow-up to all the previous questions. I just want an affirmation. Um, GitHub, if you host a document file in GitHub, will there be anything wrong with doing that? You know what I mean? Let's say Microsoft Word, something like that. If you host it on GitHub, is anything going to go wrong? Because I know that Microsoft Word is not for coding, but is there any
Right.
problem with doing that? Yeah.
Well, I mean, you can do it. It doesn't mean you should do it, right? In my experience, I've never had the opportunity to, well, I've never had the need to upload a document or a Microsoft Word file. However, I remember I once uploaded a PDF file to it, and it didn't look great. Like it looked corrupted. Like you could see the metadata of the file in the GitHub visualizer. So usually, like you can see files such as Python files, C++ files, Rust files, even text files. But when you start uploading things such as PDFs or images, it might look a little weird on the Visual Studio Code or whatever program you use to code. And it also might look weird when you go into the repository on github.com and you try to look at the file and it's just like a bunch of numbers and corrupted text, right? So you can do it. However, I wouldn't recommend it, but you can do it and you can store files, and once you download them, they will look great on your computer. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you for asking the question. Thank you. Okay, so if there's no more questions left, I'll talk about branching and
So,
about the
so
other
just
things.
just
Oh
just a
yeah,
moment. Let me just chip in an additional thing, right?
yeah,
So I think one of the things to just keep in perspective, right? GitHub alongside with Git will do two things for you. It will provide storage. I've seen people use GitHub for project management. So they create like the tables, assign roles, almost like you see Notion, right, being used, or Monday.com and all of that, right? I've seen people do that. I've also seen people actually store all kinds of data on it, but Sebastian was saying, that's not the primary role of of of. I've actually seen even the PDF documents. There are people that. So one way to think about it is just think about it like your OneDrive, or think about it like your Google Drive. You can actually store everything. It depends on how you store it. Like there's a way you store it and it will be doing what Sebastian just mentioned, but I've also seen people store it in a way where the PDF is actually there. And I'm saying all of this because it's going to be recorded, and some people will be like, like I've seen a PDF stored. For real, a PDF, I can actually show you something. It can, but there are ways you will store it, right? And it will be giving you a bunch of numbers and errors. All right.
well, thank you for the thank you, Dr. Noble. Yeah, also adding on top of that, there are some repositories that host like programming related, oop, they host programming related questions, for example, or programming related books. And I mean, they're usually EPUBs or PDFs. And once you download them, they look good. However, yeah, sometimes for some kind of file types like images, they won't look as good on Git and GitHub.
Yeah.
Now, I see somebody ask a question. Is it possible to use Git and is it possible to use Git without GitHub? Or are they watertight coupled together as the name is GitHub? That is a really good question, honestly. I never thought of it. Um, so Git and GitHub, you can use Git without GitHub. However, you cannot really use GitHub without Git, if that makes sense. Or well, you can, but let's just take as a rule of thumb that you can't, okay? So you can definitely use Git as like a folder inside a flash drive, and then you make your changes, commit them, and then pass around the flash drive around like the 5 people on your team. But as you can imagine, passing around a flash drive for coding purposes and for like efficiency at a company isn't really the most like efficient solution you can find to this problem, which is why a lot of companies they have a Git folder inside of the cloud on GitHub, and then they are able to access the code freely at any time. Does that answer your question, Victor?
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you for asking the question. So now that we have that, I think we can move on to branching. Once again, I'll have like a questions answer like session at the end. And if we have time, which I think we will, we'll create everybody here, we will create our own repository so you can customize what shows up on your GitHub. So now with that out of the way, so we have branching and, oh, 1 second. Okay, branching. So branching is essentially the same as a copy of the repository. And remember, the repository is the same as a folder, okay? Just think of it as a folder. Every time I say repository, just think folder. So branching is like creating a copy of this folder or repository, I guess. Sure. And we do this so we can isolate the changes. So let's say we're working on a feature. Let's say we are Meta, right? And you are working at like the Instagram team, and you guys want to add a feature that's, I don't know, something like video support, even though they already have video support, but let's just say that, right? Like very early Instagram, back when it was only photos, you want to add video support, you would usually, instead of just coding the video support into the app, you would first create a copy of the app, then code the video support on it. So if something breaks, you would have broken the copy of the repository. You wouldn't have broken the like version of the repository that millions and millions of people rely on every day. So usually you create a new branch or a new copy of the repository for every new feature you create, any experiments, or any bug fixes. And generally speaking, the command to create a new repository, if you want to use commands, there are also other ways to do it. Usually speaking, the command is git, which git is the command. So git branch, and then you write the branch name. And that will create a new branch in which you can experiment and fix bugs or create a new feature or experiment. Anyway, with that out of the way, now we can do merging and pull requests. So merges and pull requests, they are pretty much the same thing, although a bit different. So merging is when you combine changes made in one branch into another branch. So let's say you have a branch that's like the original Instagram, right? I mean, I hope everybody here knows what Instagram is. So let's say you have a copy of a folder that is Instagram, and then you have a second copy of a folder that is Instagram, but with, I don't know, blue colors instead of the pink, yellowish color they have right now. When you're merging, you're combining the changes made into the new folder. So they're coming from the new folder into the original folder. That's merging. Then pull requests is essentially the same thing as merging. However, there is more of like a discussion with your peers where they check your code and they'll tell you like, hey, this looks good, or no, don't include that at all. So it's more like collaborative doing pull requests compared to just merging the changes right away. And then there's also merge conflicts, which if you ever use Git and GitHub, you're gonna hate merge conflicts. So merge conflicts essentially occur when there's two different changes that two different people make, and they are completely different changes. So GitHub and Git, they are smart enough to differentiate what you want and you don't want. Like when you're just talking about changes, generally speaking, it's like smart enough to discern what's like the right change. However, sometimes it needs human input, and that's where a merge conflict occurs, and you have to intervene and say what change you want added to your code base. And just want to reiterate, it's fine if you don't understand everything here. If you understand 10% or 20%, that's completely fine. You will understand a lot more when we go and do the demo. So here's an example, right? I don't know if you guys can see my cursor. Actually, oh wait, I didn't know this existed. Okay, you can probably see the laser pointer here. So wait, can you guys see this? The laser thingy?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Yes, you can.
Okay,
Yeah, we can
great,
see
great.
it.
That's great. That's great. Thank you. So here we have our main branch, meaning this is our original code. This is where things such as, I don't know, Facebook, right? Like the Facebook app. Generally speaking, it's on the main branch. And then if you want to add a feature to Facebook, then you create a new branch. So you create a branch called feature, and you're essentially cloning main. And then it goes down here, and then you make changes, right? You add features. Then you make a submission of a pull request. So you're requesting for your changes to be added to the original Facebook app in this example. And then people discuss the changes. They'll be like, yeah, this sounds like a good idea, or no, this is a terrible idea. And then you make more commits, you make more changes, and eventually your feature, your feature branch is merged or is implemented into the original branch, into the main branch. So are there any questions at all? Any questions? It's completely fine if you have questions, just ask away.
So for me, it's a comment, right? Just for nuance, right? All of this is happening during the development phase, not the production phase. You see, so you can't branch out you can't branch out from a production pipeline, but you do that in your development phase, right? It's after all of that development has happened that you now go ahead and stage before you deploy to production. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
Sebastian, you know why I said that, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think I
Yeah.
follow the idea. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want anyone to get the impression that what you're tweaking and playing around is your production code. It's your development
Yeah.
code. Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely never want to play around with your production code. Otherwise, things like let me think of a really good example. Um, not long ago in the United States and in some parts of Europe, and I think even in Asia and Africa, there was a problem with a company that was an IT company, and they pushed an update that broke every system with their code on it. Let's see if I can actually find it.
I think I
Can you guys see
remember
my?
that. Yeah, I think it was an airline incident.
Yes,
Well,
yes,
yeah.
yes. So this company, right? They basically pushed an update and it broke everything, every system that had CrowdStrike on it. I don't know if you guys can see my screen. Can you guys see my screen?
No, we're on the former screen.
Oh God. Okay, okay. Let's see if I can
Branches.
change it. Screens, share. Does that work now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So this is a really good example of why you don't want to play around on your production code or your like the code that your user sees, okay? This company, CrowdStrike, they are an IT company. They updated their systems, and overnight, all of their systems broke because of an update that just didn't get tested enough. And this caused so many problems at airports, at restaurants, at like offices, like any system that had their code on it completely broke. And of course, their stock went down a lot and they lost a lot of money just because they didn't do enough work to actually make sure their update worked. So this is exactly why you usually start on a new copy of your code, right? You're like, let's say development code, and you play around there, then people discuss the changes and they'll make enough due diligence to make sure your code also works, and you yourself do due diligence to make sure your code works. And then after enough testing and enough quality assurance, then your code is merged and implemented into a more uh, user fronted code, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
So with that out of the way, we can just go to the key takeaways. Then we're gonna do a quick questions and answers. Then we're gonna do a quick demo. Although I think we have time. We're gonna do a very, very quick demo. So anyway, the key takeaways is that Git is the system to track your changes made in a folder. And remember, when I say folder, I really mean a repository. And when I say repository, I really mean a folder with Git on it. Yeah, that was a mouthful. I know. Um, so Git also helps you store the repository's own history in a hidden .git file, well, folder, which I'm gonna show you guys, don't worry. And that's Git. However, GitHub is the Google Drive or the OneDrive of programmers where they can share, backup, collaborate with other programmers, and it's usually only for code. Usually. Although there are some exceptions, okay? you can still host like I'm pretty sure any kind of file, but usually it's just for code. And this is how you commit changes to a repository, or how you create a repository, depending on what you want. With the command line, which I mean the command line, right? The like scary command line. I I am not expecting everybody here to know how to use the command line, so I'm gonna make it a bit easier, and I'm gonna use uh the GitHub website itself. Okay. But however, if you want to, if you're like a little bit more, if you know a little bit more of programming and you want to use the command line, then you can do git init to initialize the repo, or git clone to clone a repo that already exists, then git pull to pull all the changes. Although this is not completely necessary, however, it's really good to do it. Git add dot to save all your changes, and then commit your changes and then push that code to the cloud. However, we're probably not going to be using this today, but still good to know. So before I go into the demo, which is going to be like 20 minutes or less, does anybody here have any questions? Sebi, I see you have your hand raised. Can you ask your question?
Yes, Sebastian. Good afternoon to you and my colleagues. Thank you for your wonderful presentation. With the explanation given, then I believe that the Git and then the GitHub, for one to be able to use it, might have a profile setup. So how does one set up a profile? Isn't that one will set up a profile on the Git, and then the GitHub will automatically scrutinize it, and then you get your profile on the GitHub, or you have to set your profile on both? Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you for your question. I love people asking questions, especially these kind of questions. This is like a really good question. So Git, for example, you do have to set it up. However, sometimes your own repository management tool, which I'm gonna touch on later, usually it sets it up for you when you go through the setup process of the tool you use. But generally speaking, you do have to set up Git with, I think it's like 2 commands and a third command if you want to make sure. And then GitHub, you do need to sign up to it with through github.com. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you so much for asking.
And then
So,
Sebastian also realized that when we started the class, I had them download Git on their desktops.
okay. Okay. Yeah, that's perfect. That's actually, yeah, that's great. Okay. That means we might be able to do it with the command line. However, I don't know how many of you are like comfortable with the command line. So I'll try to go easy on you guys and do it in a like easy, efficient way. Um, are there any more questions? Any more questions before I go onto the demo? Okay, I see a question on the chat. So it says, I'm just thinking, in a situation where multiple people make changes on the same code, won't there be some kind of conflicting issues? In case there is, how can these conflicts be resolved? Really great question. That gets into conflict management and merge conflicts, which I'm telling you, Victor, thank you for asking the question as well. Victor, merge conflicts, they are not fun to handle, but it can be done. If two people make a change at the same time, or they make a change and somebody else doesn't have the updated version of the code, then a merge conflict can occur. GitHub and Git usually is like they both are smart enough to know which change you actually want. However, sometimes merge conflicts do occur and you have to manually intervene and you yourself like say, yes, I want this change, or no, I don't want this change. Or alternatively, you can say, yes, I want both changes. So does that answer your question, Victor?
Oh, yes, yes, yes. So there's a collaboration. We can
Yes,
always
yes.
come to compromise, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
okay.
That is part of the that is exactly why you have a discussion part when you usually merge changes from one copy of your project to another copy of your project, just to make sure that the code you're proposing doesn't have like any security vulnerabilities, such as what I showed you guys from CrowdStrike that they lost billions of dollars just because they didn't have enough conversation on it. But yeah, thank you
Oh,
so much
that's
for the
great.
question. Thank you so much for the question.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Does anybody else have any questions? If you don't want to say it out loud, you can ask in the chat and I'm gonna read them and answer them. So any questions? Any questions?
Okay, just go ahead. I think we are bumping up on the hour.
Okay, yeah, I have like we have 23 minutes. So we can create our own Git, our own repository. I mean, well, GitHub repository or Git repository, whatever we want. Okay, so I'm gonna do it the easy way first. You don't have to follow through with me because I'm also gonna do it like the hard way, which is what I hope to cover in these 23 minutes. So let's get into it. Okay, great. So I hope everybody has a github.com website. If you don't, it's fine. Just go to github.com, GITHUB.com. I'll send the link on the chat. So you can create your own account there, go through the process of like two-factor authentication, whatever. So let me give you a very, very quick example on how to do it from the browser. So if you're in the browser, you'll want to press the plus button here that says create new, and then you just press new repository. And I mean, it's pretty simple, right? You just name the repository. So let's say like test Osiri, and then you add a description, right? Test repository. I mean, it's really simple. You say whether you want a public or private repository. If you want a private repository, then you check private. And remember, a private repository can only be accessed by people you choose. So if I want to work on like a top secret project, hopefully you would make it private and not public, right? And usually speaking, you do want to add a README file. So with that out of the way, right? You can create the repository and boom, easy. There you have a repository. If you want to add files, you can just create new files, do whatever. It's again, it's like really simple when you do it from the browser. However, if you want to go through this process on the command line, then it's going to be a bit harder. However, as Dr. Noble mentioned, I believe everybody here
Sorry to
has a Git.
interrupt.
Yeah.
Hello, Sebastian. Please, can you repeat the process again?
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, it's fine. Sometimes I underestimate how hard it can be. So, okay. So when you go on GitHub, you'll see the home screen, right? And once in this home screen, you can see things such as your own repositories. Sometimes you can see your teams you're part of. and then you can see the latest changes made to GitHub. And then you can see like your own feed. So people that follow you or some things that might be interesting to you. So to create a repository, all you have to do is click this plus button at the top right of your screen. And then once you click it, it'll show different things such as creating new issue, a new repository, importing a repository, new agent task, which is, I think that's AI stuff, new code spaces, new GIST, new organizations. Anyway, there's a lot of options. So specifically here, we want to create a new repository. So you'll just click on new repository. And then you can, go through the process. There's things such as the repository name. So you just name it however you want. Usually speaking, you
Hello?
don't want to have, you don't have,
I don't know. I don't know if you have called their parents to the. Do you have the Ebuka number? Let me call it. They're already in church now.
Sorry, please continue.
okay, that's okay. I couldn't quite hear it, so it's fine. So once you're here in GitHub and in the new repository page, all you'll want to do is name your repository. Usually you cannot make your repository look like blank. Like it needs to have a name. So in this scenario, you can name it like testing 123 or 123. You also add a description if so you wish. You don't have to, but it's also recommended to add a description. And then you choose whether you want a public repository or a private repository. A public repository can only be seen, well, can be seen by like anybody on the internet. Meanwhile, a private repository can only be seen by you, and whoever you choose can see or change the repository. And then what's really important that not a lot of people might know, generally speaking, you want to initialize the repository, so create the repository with a README file. So what a README file is a file that has all the information regarding the repository. So let me just give you a really quick example. I was working on a project, right, with a team of other programmers for my software engineering class. And we created README file that explains all of the subfolders, and it has a showcase video, and it explains like the project itself. So usually speaking, you want to add a README file here. And then when you create it, you can see a repository here. You can see the page. You can see you have a repository, you have a file, and it's under your account. Is everybody following so far?
I am.
Yes, sir.
Following, sir.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, yes, I can hear you.
I was saying if you could have gone back to the last page. Just wanted to see that last page.
Can you hear me? Can I go ahead with the question?
Hey, I can't quite hear you.
No, he said
do you mind?
He said he wants to see the last page.
Oh, okay. So the last page I showed here is that you can also add files. So if you have a file you want to upload, you can upload the file from here. So if you're working on something such as, I don't know, you're in Visual Studio Code, right? and you write a hello world program, like literally a print statement that prints hello world, you can upload that file here and it'll show up on the repository itself. Let me just give you an example, right? If I go here and find some random file, right? Some random file I myself created. Let's say I want to upload my encryption file, which I coded. You can just choose the file that, oh, okay, yeah. Oh, okay, yeah. You can choose the file there and you'll see the file you just chose appears down here. And then you can make a commit. So you're uploading your files to GitHub, and we can say something like upload and encryption files, and preferably you add a description. You don't have to. And then you can make that change and you'll see the new file here on your repository. So that was just a really quick example of how to upload your files. You can also create a new file by clicking here on add file and then clicking create new file. And then you can do something such as print hello world. And then naming your file up here. So in this case would be hello.py. However, sometimes you want to upload your code onto a folder. What you do in that scenario is that you specifically type in the folder name followed by backslash. So if I want to upload this to Python, right, then you write python/hello.py. And then you can make that change, commit it. And if you go back, you can see now you have an encryption file, a README, and a folder. And inside the folder, there's a Python file, the Python file we just created from GitHub website. So any questions so far? Any questions? Any questions?
Hello.
Hello?
Hello.
Yes, hello. We can hear you.
I have one.
Hello, we can hear you.
I have one question.
Okay, yeah.
How do we use GitHub on Windows command line?
Okay, great. So if you want to create a Git repository from the command line, it's really simple. However, it does require you to know some commands. So I hope everybody here is on Windows. If not, I don't know what to tell you. Just hope you're on Windows. However, and this might work on Linux as well. This might work on Linux as well. So just open your start menu and type in PowerShell.
This one. I don't have a
So if everybody here goes to the Windows start menu and opens PowerShell, like please raise your hand. Okay, I see one hand raised. Nice, nice. Maybe can I see two hands? Maybe can I see two hands? Okay, two hands. Great. Okay, three hands. Just go onto press the Windows button and type in PowerShell and open it. Okay, 3 hands. 3 hands. Great. 4 hands, maybe? 4 hands? If I see 4 hands, I'll start. I'll start if I see 4 hands. Okay, great. 4 hands. Great. Okay. So now that we hopefully most of us are in the PowerShell thing, we can just to make sure we actually have Git installed. You can type in Git and you should see a list of commands for Git. Hopefully. I mean, I haven't heard anything back from anybody, so I hope that's a good sign. So,
Yes, I have it installed.
okay, great. That is great. So now that we have Git, we'll have to do a couple commands to essentially set it up. But before that, I just want to kind of make sure you guys understand Git is the command you use for anything Git related. So if you want to create a branch, you use Git. If you want to commit, you use Git. If you want to initialize a repository, you use Git. So first of all, we want to configure our Git profile. So for that, you want to type in git config followed by -- global user.name. And then inside of this, you type in your GitHub username. To see your GitHub username, you can just go to GitHub and press on the top right corner, and then your profile, and then whatever is here, like in the very thin gray font.
Sorry, excuse me.
Yeah, hello.
I'm not sure I have a Git username because I didn't follow through when you were doing the Git example, when you were creating those files and committing. So does it mean I don't have a Git username?
Okay, wait, so could you rephrase that maybe a little bit more?
So I'm on PowerShell
Yeah.
and I'm just at the point of doing the config that you asked us to do. The problem is I'm not sure I have any GitHub username.
Okay. I mean, that's completely fine. I think, generally speaking, you don't need a GitHub username to use
Okay.
Git. However, it is recommended to have it in order to essentially connect your Git to GitHub, so GitHub recognizes that you are yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for now, if you don't have a GitHub username, you can just type in your name, and that should be fine.
Okay. So are you going to share this on the chat? The Git config double like that?
Okay, so if you're doing git config -- global user.name, just type in your username. Yeah.
Now I was saying whether you would share this on the chat.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah, totally. I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand your question. It's fine. Let me just type it in. Git config.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, ask away.
Okay, so in the window PowerShell, so you said the first thing you said we should type was GIT, that's Git. I
Yeah.
typed that. Was that something that was supposed to follow it, or it was just supposed to be Git? Because mine keeps giving me error messages. Like is it red?
What's the error message?
So it just says failed to run. Program git.exe failed to run.
Okay, that can be a couple of things. It can be either you don't have the right version of Git installed, So let's say if you're on Windows, maybe you installed the Linux version. So if you don't mind, you can follow up with me on Discord. I am on the Discord server. I hope you are too. I am at Sebastian, and you can just like message me there, and I can follow up on that later.
Yeah, and if you have any questions, anybody, just meet the instructor and we'll try to. So if the questions you're asking are specific to what's happening to you, let's just deal with that in GitHub so that he goes through the process. So because the video is going to be available to everybody, right? Then if you have individual cases, we can address them because of time constraints. I think we have just 4 minutes. So you haven't done branching, you haven't done merging and all of that. So
yeah, I've noticed that. I might have to send the. I have a couple quick videos. They're pretty short. They're like 4 minutes each, talking about each topic. I might have to send them on the chat so people can
awesome.
follow up on those.
Yeah, awesome. So he's going to send, because he has these little videos used for previous trainings that can walk you through every of the process, right? Short 4 minutes video. So we put them on the platform and also put them on Google Classroom. And then
Yeah.
if you have specific individual problem, even if we have to get on Zoom with you to try to resolve it, we'll do that. So
Yeah.
sorry, yeah. Sorry,
So
just a minute. Sodia, do you have a general question? Sodia? Because I see your hand is up.
Yes, sir. I was getting an error message, but one of my classmates answered.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
all right, great. So today we have 3 minutes. So I just want to make sure maybe we can create a GitHub folder, okay? Which is, it's easier than you would think. So we run git config -- global user.name and then your username. And then we run the exact same command. However, instead of user.name, we do user.email. And we type in the email connected to your GitHub account. So to see that, you can go to GitHub, press on the top right corner your user profile, then settings, and then once in settings, you just go to the section that says emails, and you see your email connected to the GitHub account. So, okay, I'll just speed through this. So we do that, right? Then we want to go to the folder we want to track. So in this case, we have to create a new folder. However, we first have to move to where we want to create the folder. So for that, we use the command called cd, which stands for change directory. And I'm changing to my desktop. So we'll be able to see the change on my desktop here, hopefully over here. So now that we're in the desktop and the command line, we just type in mk there, which basically stands for make directory. Because in programming terms, a directory is the same thing as a folder. Kind of. So then we type in the name we want for the directory. In this scenario, I'll just name it test repository. And now you can see a new folder just appeared on the left side of my screen. Then we just change to go inside of that directory. And all you have to do to create a repository, git init. And that's it. You created a Git repository. And once you go inside of this, you'll be able to see an invisible .git folder. So that's, I think, everything I can cover for now. Once again, I'll be answering questions on the Discord. Just ping me. at Sebastian, and really just ping me, just ask any questions. There's Dr. Noble. He can send the questions to me. So if you have any questions, let me know. I'll be sending the videos on the chat in the following days. I think tomorrow. Yeah. And yeah, if you have any questions, just let me know. Thank you
Yeah,
for listening to my
yeah.
presentation.
And Sebastian, what I want you to do is just do a quick summary of once you opened PowerShell, what did you do?
Oh yeah,
And why did you do
like
them? Yeah.
yeah. So the very first thing I did on PowerShell, let me expand this. Okay, great. Oop, okay. Okay, I think I just copy and pasted something.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah, anyway, so the very first thing you want to do is type in Git. So by typing in Git, you're basically making sure you already have Git installed, which is really important considering you're going to be using Git all this time. Then you're going to want to make sure you don't get any like crazy like red error, because that's bad, right? Like red usually, yeah, that sounds bad. So if you get something like instructions as to how to use the command and you get like a lot of text that is not red, then that's good. Then what you want to do is type in git config -- global user.name and then the string of your username for GitHub. And then you do the same thing, but with your email. So we do this to basically tell Git the program, hey, I'm Sebastian Boskin, and this is my email. So when you eventually upload this repository to GitHub or Gitbook or any program you use, right, for storing Git repositories, in our case, GitHub, this will basically help in some way validate that, yes, you are this person, and yes, this is your email. There's definitely more into it, but I'm not gonna get into the specifics.
Yeah, and that's also helping point to your GitHub. Remember, because that's the username you used for GitHub when you were setting it up, correct?
Yes, that is correct. Then you want to change your folder or change your directory path to where you want to create your folder, okay? So in this case, I wanted to go to the desktop. So, oh my God, bro. Okay. So I'm sorry. I keep on accidentally pressing buttons. So what we did here by cd /desktop is we're going to the desktop folder because yes, this is a desktop and this is a folder. Then we want to create the actual directory that we want to turn into a repository. And to do that, you type in make directory and then the name of the directory. As you can see, I type in make directory test underscore repo. And then we have here test underscore repo. And then finally, you change to this directory and you initialize the repository, which is why we have this invisible folder.
So now, if you get your any file you put in there, right, will be tracked, correct?
Yes, it will be tracked. And I mean, of course, I can't get into the specifics because then we'd be here all day, but it will be tracked as long as you also commit the new change.
Yeah, so he's going to put out all of the videos of how you do it, and they are short videos. They are clearer than what you would have here, and it will walk you through the process of putting in things in the folder, committing them, and making it all work.
Yep.
All right. All right. Yeah, that's a long one. So hopefully we are able to resolve that. If for any reason we need an additional session, I would watch what the feedback looks like, the kind of questions people are asking, then we would have to do it. And then we'll figure out a way to make it more digestible than whatever we have right now. But Sebastian, that's an excellent work you've done there. Thank you.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to teach to a lot of people.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so please look out for the videos. We will try to make it as digestible as possible. And then please, if you have any questions, let's discuss on Discord. And if we need to get on screen to walk you through your specific problems, we will help you do that. Thank you so much. So what else do we have going on? So please look at, if you get into the Google Drive that I sent the link, one of the things you're going to see there is that we have a 3b. We only did 3a, right? There's a 3b. Please go through it. The 3b is essentially a full project, right, with Titanic. So go through it. If you have any questions, please let's revert and we talk about it. And I think next week we are beginning to gradually move into predictive analytics. But I think there are some commands that I would also want us to touch somewhere along the line. Some commands that are used to clean up data and all of that, just to introduce us a little bit to it. What else? There are a couple of people like I saw Peter. Peter, you asked, you were saying something about not knowing what group you were in. I checked you on GitHub. I can't really find you. Either you have a name that's different than what you have or something. You can wait and talk to me. And any other person that wants to talk to me about anything specific that we need to address, you can also wait behind. So beside that, if anyone has a question, please throw it my way, include it in the chat. Whatever it is, just get to me. But beside that, I would want to formally dismiss the class. But if you want to stay back for anything, please do. So I'm going to be able to commit about 10, 15 minutes more here because I have an appointment by 12:30 my time, which is probably 7:30 your time. I'm supposed to be somewhere to help someone out with something too. All right, thank you. Let me see if there are any questions. Okay, please add me to the group. Still not included. Okay, are you on Discord? Mark this. All right, bye-bye. You all have an excellent week. We will catch up with you next week. And please, let's keep the questions coming on Discord. And somehow we're going to find the answers. And we will all do well in this class. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doc, for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it.